The massive alien ships moved through space like hungry wolves. Their dark metal hulls gleamed under the light of distant stars as they surrounded the peaceful world of Viridian Prime. The planet below was blue and green, covered with oceans and forests where millions of innocent people lived their quiet lives. Admiral Zethkar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Void Render. His tall gray body cast a long shadow across the control panels. His forearms moved quickly over the glowing buttons and screens. Red eyes that never blinked stared down at the world they were about to destroy. This was just another day for the Kethmar Empire. Another world to conquer. Another species to crush. The alien admiral had done this hundreds of times before. He had burned planets and enslaved entire civilizations. The Kethmar way was simple and brutal. They would arrive at a world and give the people one choice: surrender completely or die completely. Most species chose to surrender. The smart ones knew they had no chance against the Empire's mighty fleet. The Viridians had chosen to fight. It was a mistake they would not live to regret. Zethkar's ship was enormous. It was 5 miles long and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Behind him, 200 other Kethmar vessels waited for his command. Each ship was filled with soldiers ready to kill. Each ship carried weapons that could turn cities to ash in seconds. On the planet below, the Viridians scrambled to defend themselves. Their small fighter ships rose up from the surface like angry insects. They fired their weak lasers at the alien fleet. The shots bounced off the Kethmar shields like raindrops hitting a steel wall. It was hopeless, but the Viridians tried anyway. Captain Jake Murphy watched the destruction from the edge of the star system. His merchant ship, Liberty's Dawn, was small and old. It carried supplies between the colony worlds. Murphy had been delivering food and medicine to Viridian Prime when the Kethmar fleet arrived. Now he hid behind a large asteroid, praying the aliens would not notice his tiny vessel. Murphy was a weathered man in his 50s. His face was lined with wrinkles from years of space travel. His brown hair was going gray at the edges. He had seen many things in his long career, but nothing like this. Nothing so terrible and one-sided. His navigator, Lisa Bennett, sat at her station with tears in her eyes. She was young, maybe 25, with blonde hair tied back in a ponytail. This was only her second year working on merchant ships. She had family on Viridian Prime. Cousins and aunts she would never see again. "Captain," she whispered, "we have to do something. We can't just watch them die." Murphy's hands gripped the arms of his chair until his knuckles turned white. "There's nothing we can do, Lisa. Nothing at all. If we move closer, they'll kill us too." The ship's engineer, Carl Rodriguez, climbed up from the lower decks. He was a big man with strong hands covered in grease and scars. He had worked on ships for 30 years and knew every bolt and wire on the Liberty's Dawn. His face was pale as he looked at the main screen. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "Look at the size of those things." The Kethmar attack began without warning. Beams of pure energy lanced down from the alien ships. They struck the planet's surface with the force of nuclear bombs. Entire cities vanished in flashes of white light. Mountains melted like ice cream in the sun. The oceans began to boil. The Viridian defense fleet lasted exactly 11 minutes. Their ships exploded one by one as the Kethmar weapons found their targets. Some tried to ram the alien vessels in desperate suicide attacks. They might as well have been trying to damage a mountain by throwing pebbles at it. Zethkar watched the slaughter with cold satisfaction. This was how it always went. The inferior species would make their pathetic attempts at resistance. Then, they would die. The strong survived and the weak perished. This was the natural order of the universe. Within 3 hours, Viridian Prime was a dead world. Its atmosphere burned away into space. Its cities were nothing but radioactive craters. The blue-green planet that had once been home to 50 million people was now a charred rock floating in the void. Murphy forced himself to keep watching. Someone had to witness this horror. Someone had to remember what happened here. His hands shook as he activated the ship's recording systems. Every second of the massacre was being stored in the Liberty's Dawn's memory banks. "We need to get out of here," Rodriguez said, "before they notice us." "Not yet," Murphy replied. "I need to see everything. The people back home need to know what's coming." The Kethmar fleet began to move away from the dead world. They had taken what they wanted. The planet's resources would be strip-mined later by slave ships. For now, Admiral Zethkar had bigger concerns. His next target was already chosen. Small yellow star 12 light-years away. A young species that called themselves humans. They controlled 12 star systems and thought they were safe behind their little defense fleets. Zethkar's intelligence report said the humans had decent technology for such a primitive race. But decent was not enough. Decent had never been enough against the Kethmar Empire. The Admiral had conquered 47 different species in his long career. Some had been stronger than the humans. Some had been smarter. All of them were dead now, or working as slaves in the Empire's factories and mines. Murphy waited until the last alien ship disappeared into hyperspace. Then he powered up his engines and began the long journey back to human space. He had a message to deliver. A warning that might save his species from the same fate as the Viridians. As the Liberty's dawn jumped to faster-than-light speed, Murphy looked back one last time at the dead world behind them. Somewhere in that burning wasteland were the remains of 50 million innocent people. People who had done nothing wrong except exist in the path of the Kethmar Empire. The humans would be next, unless someone could find a way to stop the unstoppable. Captain Jake Murphy's ship emerged from hyperspace near Earth's outer defense stations. The Liberty's dawn was battered and scarred from the long journey home. 3 weeks of hard travel through dangerous space lanes had taken their toll on the old merchant vessel. But Murphy had made it. He had brought the warning that might save his species. Earth hung before them like a blue marble against the black of space. Murphy had seen his home planet 1,000 times, but it never failed to move him. The white clouds swirling over green continents, the bright lights of cities on the night side, billions of people living their lives, unaware that death was coming, for them all. "Earth Control, this is Captain Murphy of the merchant vessel Liberty's Dawn," he spoke into his radio. "I need to speak with Admiral Williams immediately. Emergency priority, the highest emergency you've got." The voice that came back was young and professional. "Captain Murphy, please state the nature of your emergency. Are you in need of medical assistance or repair services?" Murphy closed his eyes and tried to find the right words. How do you tell someone that their entire world is about to die? "Earth Control, I have witnessed the complete destruction of Viridian Prime, an alien fleet of massive size and power. They're coming this way. Get me Admiral Williams now." There was a long pause. Then the voice came back, less professional now and more worried. "Captain Murphy, please proceed to Docking Bay 7. Admiral Williams will meet you there personally." Lisa Bennett sat at her station, still pale from their long journey. She had not spoken much since watching Viridian Prime burn. Her family was dead, along with everyone else she had ever known on that world. Carl Rodriguez worked quietly in the engine room, keeping the Liberty's Dawn running through sheer willpower and 30 years of experience. Admiral Kate Williams was waiting when Murphy's ship docked. She was a tall woman in her 40s with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes. Her uniform was crisp and clean, with rows of medals that told the story of a long military career. Behind her stood President Harrison, a heavy-set man with kind eyes and worry lines around his mouth. Murphy walked slowly down the docking ramp. He felt every one of his 53 years weighing on his shoulders. The recording device in his hand contained images that would give these people nightmares for the rest of their lives. "Captain Murphy," Admiral Williams said, "show us what you've brought." They gathered in a secure briefing room deep inside the space station. The walls were lined with screens and communication equipment. Around a large table sat the most powerful people in human space: Admiral Williams, President Harrison, and a dozen military commanders and government officials. Murphy connected his recording device to the main display. The screen filled with the image of Viridian Prime as it had been, beautiful and alive, with its blue oceans and green continents. Then the Kethmar fleet appeared, dark shapes against the stars. The room fell silent as they watched the destruction. City-sized energy beams stabbing down from space. Continents cracking and burning. An entire world dying in just 3 hours. When the recording ended, nobody spoke for a long time. Dr. Alex Turner, Earth's leading expert on alien life, was the first to find his voice. He was a thin man with thick glasses and nervous hands. Captain Murphy, did you get any readings on their technology? Any information about their weapons or ships? Murphy nodded and handed over his ship's sensor logs. Everything we could record without getting too close. They're big, Doctor. Bigger than anything we've ever built. And their weapons. I've never seen anything with that kind of power. Dr. Turner studied the data on his tablet. His face grew more worried with each page. Their ships appear to be at least 5 miles long. The largest human warship is barely half a mile. Their energy output is... This can't be right. These numbers say their main weapons have the power of small suns. Colonel Danny Foster leaned forward in his chair. He was a career soldier with scars on his face and metal in his spine from old battles. How many ships in their fleet, Captain? Over 200 that I could count, Murphy replied. Maybe more hiding in the back. They moved like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Professional, efficient, cold. Admiral Williams turned to her staff officers. What do we have to defend Earth and the colonies? Colonel Foster opened his briefing folder. The news was not good. 42 warships in total, Admiral. The UES Defiance is our largest and most powerful. Captain Steve Collins commanding. But even the Defiance is tiny compared to what Captain Murphy saw. Lieutenant Amy Parker, a young intelligence officer with bright red hair and sharp green eyes, studied the alien tactical data. She was fresh out of the academy, but had a mind for patterns that impressed her superiors. Something in the enemy's movements caught her attention. Admiral, she said quietly, I think I see something important. Look at how they attacked Viridian Prime. They used overwhelming force from the start. No negotiation, no warning, just complete destruction. But why? Because they're monsters, President Harrison said with anger in his voice. No, sir, Lieutenant Parker replied. I think it's because they've never had to fight a real battle. Look at the sensor data. Their fleet formations are perfect for attacking defenseless worlds, but they've never faced an enemy that fought back effectively. They don't know how to handle real resistance. Dr. Turner looked up from his data pad. She might be right. These energy signatures suggest their weapons are designed for quick, devastating attacks. But they might not be good for long battles. They could overheat or drain too much power. Admiral Williams stood up and walked to the large window overlooking Earth. The blue planet turned slowly below them, peaceful and unaware. Somewhere out in the dark, the Kethmar fleet was coming. In weeks or months, those same alien ships would arrive here. They would try to do to Earth what they had done to Viridian Prime. How long do we have? She asked. Murphy calculated the distances in his head. 3 months, maybe 4 if we're lucky. They'll need time to regroup and plan their next attack, but they're coming, Admiral. Nothing in this galaxy has ever stopped them before. The Admiral turned back to face the room. Her decision was made. Then we'll be the first. Colonel Foster, begin immediate mobilization of all defense fleets. I want every ship we have concentrated at the Kepler 442 system. If they want to reach Earth, they'll have to go through us first. President Harrison stood up slowly. Admiral, you're talking about sacrificing our entire fleet. 42 ships against 200. It's suicide. Maybe, Williams replied. But someone has to make a stand. Someone has to show these aliens that humans don't surrender. Even if we can't win, we can make them pay a price. Maybe that will be enough to inspire others. Captain, Steve Collins, commander of the UES Defiance, had been quiet during the briefing. Now he spoke for the first time. He was a calm man in his 30s with steady hands and clear eyes. Admiral, the Defiance volunteers to lead the formation. If we're going to make a stand, we might as well do it right. The meeting ended with orders flying in all directions. Ships would be recalled from patrol duties. Weapons would be loaded. Crews would be prepared for the fight of their lives. Earth's entire defense fleet would gather at one point in space and wait for the unstoppable enemy to arrive. Murphy watched the activity with mixed feelings. He had delivered his warning. He had done his duty. But he wondered if it would be enough. Could 42 human ships really stand against the force that had conquered half the galaxy? Time would tell. The Kethmar were coming, and humanity would be ready to meet them. The Kepler 442 system was empty except for human ships. 42 warships hung in space like steel guardians protecting the jump gate that led to Earth. They formed a defensive wall across the alien fleet's path. Behind them lay humanity's home. Ahead of them waited certain death. Captain Steve Collins stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance. His flagship was the largest vessel in the human fleet, but it felt tiny in the vast emptiness of space. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet determination. They all knew what was coming. They all knew their chances of survival. Commander, Rachel Stone checked her weapon systems for the 10th time that hour. She was a small woman with dark hair and steady hands. Her fingers moved across the control panels like a pianist playing a familiar song. All guns ready, Captain. We've got enough firepower to hurt them if we get close enough. Lieutenant Tony Garcia monitored the sensor displays. He was young, maybe 25, with nervous energy that kept him moving constantly. Still no sign of them, sir. But they'll be here soon. I can feel it. Chief Engineer Beth Martinez climbed up from the engine room. She was covered in grease and sweat from working on the ship's systems. We're running as hot as we can, Captain. The reactor is at maximum output. If we need more power, I'll have to start breaking safety rules. Collins nodded at his officers. These people had served with him for 3 years. They trusted him completely and he would not let them down, even if it meant dying with them in the next few hours. Admiral Kate Williams coordinated the defense from her command ship, the UES Sovereign. She watched the tactical displays showing every human vessel in the system, destroyers and cruisers, and battleships all arranged in a formation that looked impressive until you remembered what they were facing. The jump gate at the edge of the system began to glow with strange energy. Williams felt her stomach tighten with fear and anticipation. This was it. After 3 months of preparation, the enemy had finally arrived. Space twisted and bent as the first Kethmar ships emerged from hyperspace. They came through the jump gate, like nightmares made real. Dark hulls that seemed to eat the light around them. Weapons that could crack planets. Ships so large they had their own gravity fields. Admiral Zethkar's flagship, the Void Render, led the alien fleet into normal space. Behind him came wave after wave of Kethmar vessels, 200 ships of incredible size and power. They moved in perfect formation like parts of a single deadly machine. The alien admiral studied his sensors with growing confusion. The humans were still here. Their entire fleet waited in a defensive formation directly in his path. Most species ran when they saw his armada approaching. The smart ones surrendered immediately. These humans appeared to be preparing for battle. Zethkar had conquered 47 different species in his long career. He had burned 1,000 worlds and enslaved billions of people. Not once had any enemy chosen to fight when faced with such overwhelming odds. These humans were either very brave or very stupid. Open a communication channel, he ordered his bridge crew. His voice was cold and emotionless, like winter wind over a grave. Let us offer them the standard terms. The transmission reached every human ship in the system. Zethkar's image appeared on their screens, tall and gray with red, eyes that never blinked. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of absolute authority. I am Admiral Zethkar of the Kethmar Empire. You have 1 hour to surrender completely. Disable your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in the total destruction of your species. This is your only warning. Admiral Williams looked at the alien commander's face and felt cold anger rise in her chest. This creature had destroyed entire worlds. He had killed billions of innocent people. He expected humans to bow down and accept slavery or death. She opened her own communication channel and broadcast her response to the entire Kethmar fleet. Her voice was calm and clear, with no trace of fear or doubt. This is Admiral Williams. of the United Earth Defense Force. You are not welcome in human space. We do not surrender to murderers and destroyers of worlds. Turn back now, or we will fire upon your vessels." Silence followed her words. On every Kethmar ship, alien officers stared at their communication screens in shock. No species had ever refused their ultimatum so directly. No enemy had ever threatened to attack their fleet. Zethkar felt something he had not experienced in decades: surprise. These humans were actually going to fight. They saw his massive fleet and chose battle instead of surrender. It was fascinating and foolish at the same time. Captain Collins received Admiral Williams' final orders on a secure channel. "All ships prepare for combat. We fight for Earth. We fight for humanity. Show these aliens what humans do when cornered." The Kethmar fleet moved into attack formation. Their weapons began to charge with deadly energy. Targeting systems locked onto the human vessels. In a few moments, the slaughter would begin. But something unexpected happened. The humans moved first. Collins gave the order that started humanity's last stand. "All ships, open fire, target their flagship, give them everything we've got." 42 human warships fired at once. Energy beams and missiles streaked across space toward the alien fleet. The concentrated firepower of Earth's entire defense force struck Admiral Zethkar's ship like a hammer blow. The Void Render's shields flared and sparked under the assault. Alien crew members were thrown from their stations as the massive ship shuddered under impacts it was never designed to withstand. Warning alarms screamed throughout the vessel. For the first time in Kethmar history, their flagship had taken significant damage in battle. Zethkar pulled himself up from the deck, purple blood running from a cut on his forehead. His red eyes blazed with fury and disbelief. These primitive humans had actually hurt him. They had damaged his ship and wounded his pride. "Return fire," he roared at his crew. "Kill them all, every last human ship." The Kethmar fleet opened fire with weapons that could melt continents. Energy beams lanced across space toward the human formation. The real battle was about to begin. Captain Collins watched the alien weapons approaching and felt a strange sense of peace. They had struck the first blow. They had hurt the enemy. Whatever happened next, humanity had shown it would not go quietly into the dark. "Here they come," he said to his crew. "Hold the line. Make them pay for every inch." The energy beams reached the human fleet and the dying began. The battle raged like a storm in space. Energy beams cut through the darkness as ships exploded into balls of fire and metal. The Kethmar fleet had expected a quick victory. Instead, they found themselves fighting the longest battle in their empire's history. Captain Steve Collins gripped the arms of his command chair as another alien weapon strike shook the UES Defiance. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. The lights flickered as the ship's power systems struggled to keep working. Around him, his crew fought to keep their vessel alive. "Hull breach on deck 7, Commander Rachel Stone shouted over the noise of alarms. "Emergency crews are sealing it now." "Return fire," Collins ordered. "Target that cruiser on our starboard side." The Defiance's main guns spoke with thunder and lightning. Their energy beams struck the Kethmar ship and punched through its shields. The alien vessel twisted away, trailing atmosphere and debris from the holes torn in its hull. 18 hours had passed since the battle began. 18 hours of constant fighting. The human fleet was dying ship by ship, but they were taking enemies with them. Every human vessel that fell made sure to hurt the aliens before going dark forever. The UES Courageous, under Captain Nina Adams, had lost all its weapons in the first hour of fighting. The ship was a wreck, held together by emergency welds and the will of its crew. But Captain Adams was not finished yet. "Engineering, give me everything the engines have left," she ordered. Her bridge was dark except for the red glow of emergency lights. Half her crew was dead or wounded. The ship was dying around them. "Captain, if we push the engines any harder, they'll explode," her chief engineer warned. "That's the idea," Adams replied grimly. "Set course for that Kethmar battleship." Ramming speed. The Courageous turned toward the enemy vessel like a wounded animal making one last attack. Its engines screamed as they pushed beyond their limits. The Kethmar ship tried to move away, but it was too late. The human vessel struck it amidships, and both ships disappeared in a brilliant explosion. Admiral Zethkar watched the destruction from his flagship's bridge. Purple blood ran down his gray face from wounds caused by flying debris. His perfect formation was in chaos. Kethmar ships burned and died alongside the human vessels. This was not how battles were supposed to go. "Report!" he demanded from his tactical officer. "We have lost 61 ships, Admiral. 61. The humans have lost 35, but they continue to fight. Their tactics are unusual." Unusual was not the word Zethkar would have chosen. The humans fought like madmen. They rammed his ships when their guns failed. They flew suicide missions against his heavy cruisers. They refused to retreat even when their vessels were clearly doomed. The UES Vigilant was one of the smaller human ships. Commander Pete Johnson had watched most of his friends die in the long battle. His ship was barely holding together. The hull was cracked in 3 places. Life support was failing. Most of his weapons were gone, but the Vigilant still had one trick left. "All hands, abandon ship," Johnson ordered over the intercom. "Get to the escape pods, that's an order." His bridge crew looked at him with understanding. They knew what he planned to do. One by one, they saluted their captain and left the bridge. Soon, Johnson was alone with his dying ship and 3 enemy vessels closing in for the kill. He set the reactor to overload and aimed the Vigilant at the nearest Kethmar cruiser. The alien ship fired everything it had at the approaching human vessel. Energy beams tore through the Vigilant's hull like paper, but Johnson held his course. The reactor went critical just as the 2 ships collided. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from the other side of the system. When the light faded, nothing remained of either vessel except glowing gas and twisted metal. Captain Collins felt tears on his face as he watched another friend die. The UES Vigilant had been a good ship with a brave crew. Now it was gone, along with Commander Johnson and anyone who had not made it to the escape pods in time. "Captain," Lieutenant Tony Garcia called from his sensor station. "We're down to 7 ships, 7 out of 42. Collins looked at his tactical display. 7 human vessels remained against more than 100 alien ships. The math was simple and terrible. They had fought bravely, but the end was near. Dr. Alex Turner watched the battle from Earth's command center. His computers analyzed every piece of data from the fight. What he saw gave him hope even as his heart broke for the dying crews. "Admiral Williams," he called to the fleet commander. "Look at these readings. The Kethmar ships are showing signs of serious strain. Their weapons are overheating. Their shields are failing more often. They've never fought a battle this long before." Lieutenant Amy Parker studied the alien ship movements on her screen. The perfect formations from the battle's start were gone. The Kethmar fleet looked ragged and confused. Their ships moved without coordination. Some were pulling back to repair damage. They don't know how to handle a real fight, she realized. All their previous battles ended in minutes. They've never had to manage power systems and repairs during combat. We're wearing them down. Admiral Williams made a decision that would echo through history. She opened a communication channel to the 7 remaining human ships. "All vessels, this is Admiral Williams. Prepare for final attack formation. We're going to charge their flagship. Every ship we have left, straight at Admiral Zethkar. Make our deaths count." Captain Roy Bennett commanded the UES Intrepid, one of the surviving ships. He was an old man who had served in space for 40 years. His ship was battered and burning, but its engines still worked. His crew was wounded but not beaten. "You heard the Admiral," he told his people. "Set course for that alien flagship. Full speed ahead." The 7 remaining human ships formed a line and charged toward the Void Render. The Kethmar fleet concentrated all its firepower on the approaching vessels. One by one, the human ships died in flames and fury. The UES Defiance lasted the longest. Captain Collins stood on his bridge as explosions tore through his ship. His crew lay dead around him. The vessel he had commanded for 3 years was coming apart at the seams. "For Earth," he whispered into his radio. "For humanity, we do not yield." The Defiance struck Admiral Zethkar's flagship and both ships vanished in the explosion that lit up half the system. When the fire died away, the battle was over. The human fleet was gone, But they had not died alone. The Kethmar Empire had learned a terrible lesson. Some enemies refuse to surrender. Some walls cannot be broken, only climbed over by those brave enough to pay the ultimate price. In the silence that followed, both sides counted their losses and wondered what would come next. The Kethmar fleet limped away from Kepler 442 like wounded animals fleeing from a trap. Their ships were damaged and scarred. Their formations were broken. Their confidence was shattered. In 18 hours of fighting, the humans had destroyed more alien vessels than the Empire had lost in 50 years of conquest. Sub-Admiral Kethvan stood on the bridge of his cruiser and stared at the tactical reports. The numbers made no sense to him. 68 Kethmar ships destroyed. 68. Against a primitive species that should have surrendered immediately. His hands shook as he transmitted his report to the High Command. The humans fought with complete disregard for their own survival, he said into the communication device. They used tactics we have never encountered, ramming attacks, suicide runs. They refused to retreat even when their ships were clearly doomed. It was not natural behavior. The surviving alien officers were traumatized by what they had witnessed. They had seen species beg for mercy. They had watched civilizations surrender without firing a shot. But the humans had chosen to die fighting rather than live as slaves. It was something the Kethmar Empire could not understand. Back on Earth, Admiral Kate Williams stood in the ruins of the Defense Command Center. Emergency reports flooded in from across human space. The Kethmar fleet was retreating, but at what cost? Every ship in humanity's defense force was gone. 42 vessels and 20,000 brave souls had died at Kepler 442. President Harrison walked through the debris with tears in his eyes. Admiral, we're defenseless now. If they come back, we have nothing left to stop them. Williams looked at the tactical displays showing empty space where her fleet used to be. Maybe we don't need to stop them, sir. Maybe we've already won. Captain Jake Murphy arrived at Earth just as the news of the battle reached the home planet. His merchant ship, Liberty's Dawn, docked at the same station where he had delivered his warning months ago. But this time, he brought different news. News that would change everything. Dr. Alex Turner met Murphy at the docking bay with excitement in his eyes. Captain, you need to see this. Intelligence reports are coming in from across the galaxy. The Kethmar Empire is in chaos. They gathered in the same briefing room where Murphy had first shown them the destruction of Viridian Prime. But now the screens displayed a very different picture, star maps showing rebellion and uprising across dozens of worlds. The Tauri system has declared independence, Dr. Turner explained. The Veldan colonies are in open revolt. 3 other species have attacked their Kethmar garrisons. It's spreading like wildfire. Lieutenant Amy Parker, now promoted to captain after the losses at Kepler 442, studied the intelligence reports. They heard about our battle, didn't they? They know the Empire can be hurt. Murphy nodded grimly. Word travels fast in space, Captain. Every merchant ship, every smuggler, every pirate in the galaxy knows what happened at Kepler 442. The humans made the Kethmar bleed. For the first time in history, someone made them pay a real price. The reports kept coming in hour after hour. The Zenthan uprising in the Outer Rim, the Corvan rebellion in the core worlds. Species that had been enslaved for decades were suddenly fighting back. The galaxy was catching fire, and humanity had lit the match. Admiral Williams received a coded transmission from the Thalkar, an ancient species known for building the finest ships in the galaxy. Their worlds had been conquered 30 years ago, but their shipyard still operated under alien control. Admiral Williams of Earth, the message began. We are Master Shipwright Talvin of the Thalkar Resistance. We have heard of your brave stand against the Empire. We offer our knowledge and our ships to your cause. Together we can build a fleet that will make the Kethmar tremble. More messages followed. The Zendai offered their powerful mental abilities to help coordinate the resistance. The crystal beings of Altair promised their advanced energy weapons. The aquatic Merlon pledged their stealth technology. Species from across the galaxy wanted to join humanity's fight. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442, Admiral Williams stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution. The ship was larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built before. Thalkar engineering combined with human determination had created a vessel worthy of leading the new alliance. Around her stood representatives from 23 different species, tall Thalkar with their blue skin and silver eyes, ghostly Zendai, who spoke without words, crystal beings that sang in harmonies of pure energy. The bridge looked like a gathering of myths and legends, but they were real and they were united. The Kethmar Empire ruled through fear and overwhelming force, William said to the assembled group. But they made one critical mistake. They never learned to fight an enemy who refuses to surrender. Today, we take the fight to them. The new fleet was massive. Human ships built with alien technology. Thalkar vessels crewed by mixed species. Zendai mine ships that moved like living things. The combined forces of the Galactic Liberation Alliance numbered over 300 ships, each one hungry for revenge against their former masters. Captain Murphy watched the fleet prepare for its first mission from the observation deck of his new ship. The Liberty's Dawn had been retired, and he now commanded a fast courier vessel for the Alliance. His job was to carry messages between the rebel worlds and coordinate their growing resistance. Hard to believe it all started with one warning, Lisa Bennett said as she joined him at the window. She was his first officer now, promoted after years of faithful service. The destruction of her homeworld still haunted her, but she had found purpose in the fight for freedom. The warning was, "Just the beginning," Murphy replied. "What Captain Collins and his people did at Kepler 442, that's what really started this war. They showed the galaxy that the Empire could be beaten. They proved that someone was willing to pay the price for freedom." The fleet began to move toward the jump gate that would take them to Kethmar space. For the first time in history, an attack force was heading toward the Empire's homeworlds. The hunters had become the hunted. Admiral Zethkar received the intelligence reports in his private chambers. The rebellion was spreading faster than his forces could contain it. Worse, the humans had somehow convinced dozens of species to join their cause. The primitive race that should have been extinct was now leading a galactic revolution. He had requested reinforcements from the High Command, but the other admirals were too busy dealing with uprisings in their own sectors. The Empire that had seemed invincible 6 months ago was now fighting for its very survival. As the human-led fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading for its first target, Williams thought about the crew of the UES Defiance. Captain Collins and his people had died believing their sacrifice was hopeless. They could never have imagined that their defiant last stand would inspire half the galaxy to rise up in rebellion. The war was just beginning, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Kethmar Empire had conquered worlds with ease for centuries, but they had never faced an enemy that turned defeat into victory, that made martyrdom into inspiration. The galaxy would never be the same, and it all started with humans who refused to surrender.